Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to the Supervision of Peer Workforce Conference. We're going to be getting started with our next panel. It's a panel discussion, Peer Respite Supervision, exploring the challenges and advantages of supervising a peer respite home. I'm going to just name the people that are on the panel. That's Theresa, Hodges, Shera, Banbury, Insight Peer Respite in Nevada County, Adrian Bernard, Second Story Peer Respite in Santa Cruz, Jessica Miller, Share Recovery Retreat Peer Respite in Los Angeles, and she will be moderating this panel. Jean Larkin, former volunteer and employee of Soteria House and subsequently Manon in San Francisco, and Todd Noack, Life Connections Recovery. So Jessica, you want to go ahead and take it away? Hold on just a second. If how about see, Jessica might be just getting in a moment. I'm going to go through the people on the panel, and if you can just give a quick little description of your background. How about Theresa Hodges? Would you like, and Shera Banbury? Are you here?
This is Shera. Let's see if I can get adjusted here. I don't see Theresa yet, but if you are there, Theresa, feel free to jump in. We are both from the Insight Respite Center, which is a Turning Point Incorporated program in Grass Valley, California. And our funding comes through the Nevada County Behavioral Health System, MHSA dollars. And I am actually a peer support specialist with a lot of background in management and supervision, but Theresa is our program director. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jessica, are you there now? Sorry. Just a moment. How's your day been? Tech issues. Let's see. Hold on just a minute, please.
Brian, would it be helpful if I spoke instead?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to call you. Yes, please. Can you give us a little bit of background, please?
Sure. My name is Adrian. Before Second Story started, I was one of the founding members. About almost in 2010, we started in summer. I have been manager for about 8 years now. Was supervisor for a year before that. I think it's been about 8 years total. I have been really active in a lot of movements in Santa Cruz, or at least a lot of advocacy efforts to keep Second Story afloat, and very interesting. Just on a side note is I was on Social Security for about 18, almost 20 years prior to taking this job and working my way from Social Security to full-time work. So interesting thing while hearing voices and having paranoia and all the good stuff that so many of us experience. So I'm glad to be here and welcome everyone. I look forward to being a part of this.
Thank you, Adrian, and congratulations on that. I kind of had a similar situation, so appreciate you sharing that. Let's see, Jessica is about to pop in, but how about?
I can go.
Okay, thanks.
My name is Todd Noack, and I'm a person with a lived experience, both chronic pain and both emotional distress. I live in Iowa. Yeah, I said it, Iowa, right? All that flat grassland. So I embarked on opening Iowa's first peer respite about 7 years ago, and had this dream and had this thought, and really brought a lot of people together with me to do this. I was the founder, but I had to find people that would be on the board and making sure that we had over 51% of people with lived experience. We actually did a lot of advocacy. I'd done a lot of advocacy, so much to where I live in a small town of Iowa, about 5,000 people. And I actually went to our local hospital here, which is small, and knew they had houses that they owned behind there. And so went there and talked and met with the director many times, and through the help of the Kia House was able to secure a house for the last 3.5 years since we opened. And this Friday, signing and closing on a new 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath house. So again, this is Iowa's first and only peer run respite, and our funding comes from initially our mental health region, 5 counties, and now through the advocacy for the last 3 years of going to MHDS and senators and everywhere else, we got some block grant dollars awarded to us, and so now we serve the entire state at the peer respite.
Awesome. Thank you, and congrats on the house. So Jessica's here. I've just had the panel kind of given a little short background, and I think Jean Larkin, have you said anything?
No, I can come on in too for a brief. So I'll give a hawk-eye nod to Todd. I was born and raised in Iowa, so I left it about 75 years ago. So I was part of the original Soteria House. I started out there as a volunteer and became a staff member after about 6 months. I was at Soteria for about 1.5 years. I left there to go to San Francisco to help start a Jungian-based program very similar called Diabasis. We did that for about 1.5 years, and then I left there to Elma hired me back to start Imanon, which was the replication study of Soteria, and I became the program director of that, and I was there for, again, about 2 years or so. And overall, I spent about 15 years in the mental health field here in the Bay Area. And then I left to become an at-home parent. So that's my background.
Great, thank you so much. Jessica, do you want to go ahead? Is there anyone else on the panel, I'm sorry, that hasn't sort of given an introduction? All right, then Jessica, go for it. Yes, hi.
I just wanted to say that Theresa won't be able to join us, but maybe I could fill you in a little bit more about me. I'm a stakeholder, and I had a rollover accident many years ago. And so I've experienced being on disability and having PTSD. And I have a son who has dysthymia, who also attempted suicide. And I've been working at the Respite Center for 5 years here. I'm also on the county, Nevada County Mental Health and Substance Use Advisory Board, and on the state board, CALBHBC. Thanks.
Great, thank you. All right.
Do you want me to take it from here, Brian? Do you have anybody else?
Go for it. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Hey, everyone. My name's Jessica Miller. I am a program coordinator with Shera. Thanks for sharing. I'm sorry I came a little late. I was in one of the other sessions, but yeah, so I guess I'm part of the panel, kind of. I know I'm moderating it, and we came up with a set of questions geared toward supervising peer-run respites, and just questions that, help individuals who, are considering starting a peer-run respite, or they're currently working at one. And it just kind of, these questions kind of give, good intel and details about how all of us operate at our peer run respite. So the one that I'm working at, I think it says Share Recovery Retreat, because we do have a peer run respite that's called the Recovery Retreat. But I'm currently at the one that we just opened up in North Hollywood, and we're about 3 sessions in right now. And I'm super excited about it. So I was really stoked about having a panel that was specific to my job, especially because I'm pretty new at being a supervisor for a peer run respite. So I was really excited to meet others who are more experienced than I am. But so I've been kind of picking up skills and necessary practices to, to supervise a team of peers over here in North Hollywood. So it's been a really gratifying experience so far to witness, all the work that we do and how it helps people struggling with homelessness and mental health issues and substance use issues. I myself have struggled with all 3. I just recently, well, I guess not recently, it's been about a year that I've been in LA now. But I am from Austin, Texas, and where I had a 10-year heroin addiction, and along came, mental health issues and homelessness, and a lot of the things that we practice here at our peer run respite, I've noticed are things that I implemented in my life prior to coming to LA, and the same things that we do here in this program are the same things that helped me get out of my heroin addiction and sober up and be a supervisor somewhere. And given my history, it's I don't have the best track record, but and find a lifestyle of recovery that's been really really amazing. So I'm happy to be here. I'm really honored to moderate the panel. I hope and I know I will learn a lot from some of these questions. So we did introductions then. So one of the first questions that was asked was, what are some of your goals as the supervisor of a peer respite? And if you have any thoughts or anything, you can expand as much as you want on these questions based on your experiences.
Go ahead, Shera, you have your hand up.
Yeah, do you want us just to raise our hand, or do you want us to do the symbol?
I think either one. Brian will catch you guys if your hand is raised, but if you just jump in too, that's totally cool.
Yeah, I'll speak for Theresa at this point. I think Theresa's focus, she came in as a drug and alcohol counselor, and Respite was formed about 2015. So it's a fairly young program. And I think for a while we were the only peer run respite in California, but I may be wrong about that. Anyway, I think her main focus has been to provide a safe sanctuary for people who need it. And originally we were set up to do 2 weeks of care, 24 hours a day. And that included dinners and anything else that the clients needed. So we are pretty well settled, and now our goals have expanded to quite a number of things, including we've moved a couple of times, so we have had some interruptions between that and COVID, but we have an alumni group that would contact us once a month to come for lunch. And we have a warm line where any of our clients can call in for support after they leave. So the idea is just to support them for the time that they are with us in whatever way they need, and then to be there for them if they need to call in. Thanks.
See, Todd, you have your hand raised. Thank you, Shera.
Yeah. So for me, I think, I'm the director of the organization, so we have a manager of our respite. But I think the biggest thing for us is kind of we have a contract with the state of Iowa to do some of the peer support training, and we're a subcontractor. And one of the jobs that I'm tasked with is training all the peers in the ethics and in training the supervisors in the supervision. Not just particularly at respite, but overall of peer support. And I think one of the biggest things, and my manager will tell you this as well, his philosophy is that we have a lot of people we serve, right? So our philosophy is to treat our staff the way that we do the people that we serve, right? There's a lot of people that we've had that have worked for us that have relapsed, and in a normal situation, in a normal traditional setting, they probably would have been let go for some of the circumstances. However, we know what recovery is like, right? And we want to increase the workforce, and increasing the workforce is connections, right? And we have to be in connections with us first and then them. And there's a lot of times where there's reactions that I would do that probably would not be well suited. So sometimes I know I particularly have to stop and just breathe and say, I don't know what this person's going through. I need to know more. I need to connect and find out what's going on. Now, again, there is that thing where I'm here to support you, but as a support, but I'm also here as a businessman. And so, I can't really focus on the business if I don't have that connection. So I really think, making them connections. And that's what I do in Iowa to try to increase these supervisors, right? In the traditional setting. Come on. You want to be part of the team, then do this, right? Otherwise, you're not part of the team. And a team is much more than that, right? It's holding each other up when we fall, helping that person up. And I think that's the most important thing overall in a respite, but in a position of peer recovery as well.
Thanks, Todd. Adrian, you can go ahead. You have your hand up.
Thank you. Okay. I've had a number of goals over the years on a personal level and on a collective level as well. I always said that once the house was sustainable, then I could feel like I could go in my own direction and find a different course or something and find a different job. But I think that it took us until probably a couple of years ago where we finally got sustainability, and that was the announcement for having a peer certified specialist in California. We're in process for that, but we've come to a lot of close calls. Peer services are often the first to get cut, at least in Santa Cruz, and so we've really had our backs against the wall and have fought and saved the program a few times now. So that really has been the goal in my mind, was make sure the model itself is sustainable, that it's on solid ground in Santa Cruz, and that it's just going to keep going on and on, until it's more integrated across the states, across the nation, and just so that it's just a growing model, and so supporting that sort of process has also been a part of personal goal. And I think the bigger goal for the program itself is maintaining and keeping it in a space of non-authoritarian, not having power over, the constant balance between treating people with sort of like an intentional peer support value system or a peer value system that we work with, and where we're treating people with equity and kindness and love and support and all the things that were lacking perhaps when I was going through the system myself. So I think that's the second sort of key goal that I really work on a regular basis, is making sure that we're staying true to our values. We're treating people with dignity and respect, and we don't go marching toward an authoritarian type of system. We try to have a non-hierarchical, sort of democratic, site where we can foster community and welcoming and growth. And so, which is another part of that, what I'm describing is then the community aspect then can start to flourish. And that we want to be not a hub necessarily of activity, but just a cultural shift in the system to move towards something where there's more equanimity and kindness and goodness being offered, which seems to have played out over the course of 10, 11 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. And Eugene or Jean, you want to go?
Sure, I'm going. So I'm trying to make a distinction, I guess, between administrative and supervision. Supervision, I tend to look at directly toward people, and there it's the same approach for me as toward person receiving the care or the person giving the care. And there the primary thing for me is to get my ego out of the way and to listen as much as possible. To if someone's doing something that I think may be problematic, rather than just saying stop doing that, like Adrian just addressed, don't be authoritarian. It's find out what's going on, why they did it that way, what was their thinking, what was going on with them emotionally, what was going on with them intellectually. Were they frightened or not frightened? Were they feeling arrogant? Whatever. But mostly listening and asking questions. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why did you do what you did? What's happening internally with you? And to me, like at Imanon, when I had to hire all new staff and everything, doing a lot of supervision, that was almost always the question. Why are you doing what you're doing? What's happening? What's the context in which you're operating? Which may be a different context than the person you're working with is operating. So it's understanding, for them to come to an understanding of the conflicting context, perhaps, between the two of them. And so the primary thing for me always in supervising is, I think the key word would be understanding. Understand what is going on, help them to understand what is going on, and that there is never a one right way. There are 100 right ways and probably 500 wrong ways. But the main thing is simply understanding and listening to what's going on. And that's all.
Thanks, Jean. Yeah, I'm over here taking notes because these are all, to me, these are things that I can implement all the time. And I do. I would like to add on this question if I can, because, when I think about goals for the peer run respite, I'm thinking of residents, and admittedly, I didn't think to answer this question considering my staff, although, with my staff, it's always so important for me to, have our staff meetings. We usually do our staff meetings with meditation at first, and then we do personal check-ins. And I have noticed that that's been so helpful when it comes to, working as a team together and getting on the same page to make sure that the program is operating the way that we want it to, especially, for the residents. When it comes to residents that are here, I think my main goal is really to empower them and help them to create their own style of recovery, so that hopefully when they leave, since this is something that they designed on their own, they'll commit to it. They'll commit to a continuous recovery even when we peer specialists aren't present. So Shera as a whole is really dedicated, kind of like what Jean and Adrian said. We're really dedicated to supporting people in a way that drops all control and power and sustains the peer relationship. We do everything in our power to avoid peer drift, and essentially, so individuals will always have all the control and power in their own life. A couple other like primary goals when residents are here is we, spend our time getting to know them and really connecting with them so that we can figure out what services they need outside of the respite and, what resources are needed for them to, get back on their feet or get housing or, find a network of friends and family. And, they build those things as well while they're here. And we try to just essentially get them familiar with what life could look like for them if, they decide to practice these tools that we introduce them to in their daily life. I think another goal too is using individuals who struggle in recovery, who struggle to sustain their recovery. When they're introduced to, the countless self-help support groups that do exist, and then they realize like, oh, there's a support group for this affliction that I'm dealing with, they're more than likely to try it out and go on their own and, find all of those connections once they leave the peer run respite. So, I think those are kind of personal goals, but they're also like overall goals for the program as a whole. And thank you. Does anyone want to add anything else about any goals they have before I move on to the next question?
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to add to what you said, Jessica, because I visited your first house there when I was there a couple of years ago, and I was impressed by the fact that you had your clients doing art projects together and cooking together, and that's one of the things that I think is a very nice thing to have at peer respite centers. And we do have an art area, and we encourage whatever creativity, writing, or whatever the clients have, including jewelry making, which has become pretty popular. So that's an area that we really support. When it comes to practicing daily life skills, a lot of our people are so, I don't know, they just are in such a difficult way that it's hard for them to even grasp doing some things. We have people come in and they've never put away dishes. It's just not that they haven't had the experience of living like in a home or in a situation where they feel supported. So I think it's important for us to share, and that's why it's good to have these kinds of conferences, what we are doing and what works and what doesn't. We also, going back to what was said before, we support and have a goal that we give the resources and that we don't do power and control stuff. They get enough of that when they are hospitalized. And we're trying to encourage the county to continue to orient to ways that support people and sustain them rather than directing them and controlling their situation. I think that's the essence of the peer support, actually. The main thing is getting to know the people. Like I have often thought, I've been doing this for 5 years, and I don't work a lot of hours. I only work 8 hours a week. But those hours are precious to me because I might have an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes even 3 hours with a client, and they don't get that even with their therapists. So we play a pretty critical role. And I think in a lot of ways, peer support specialists and especially their supervisors have learned so much that we have become almost experts in our own area. Thanks.
I love the jewelry piece that you told us about. I'm gonna have to pick that one up because we do like a vision board, and yeah, residents really love it. And, you know, we do it with them too. And, you know, it's just a good opportunity to be creative and express yourself in a different way, especially when people struggle with expressing themselves verbally. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. That's really awesome. Okay, so one of the other questions is, what makes supervising a peer respite different from supervising other peer roles?
Well, one of the things is we have 24-hour care at the respite centers. So you might have peers doing other things in the community, but having 24-hour care centers where the peers run essentially whatever is going on. We listen. That's the main thing. We listen. And we try to give them all the support that they're asking for. I think that's a main difference. Sorry, Vera, were you going to say something? Vera?
Did she have her hand raised?
I thought so, yeah.
Okay. Maybe not.
Here is yeah, I don't think my hand is raised. Sorry.
It's
But I
okay.
can always say something. Hi.
Hey. Yeah, I think I want to add to what you said, Shera. That's so true. The fact that it's, you know, we're 24/7, and, you know, we have an overnight shift, and they're here to essentially, you know, support people. Some, you know, like, especially people are detoxing, and, you know, they're just having trouble sleeping. Some people have a hard time just being in a place where is unfamiliar to them. And I definitely feel that way whenever I'm staying somewhere where I'm like, what is this place? I get really uncomfortable. I get anxious. I cannot sleep. And, you know, we always have staff present to be supportive and just talk through things, because sometimes that's all it takes, is like just a conversation or someone there just to listen. And, you know, we try to refrain from giving people feedback, and oftentimes people do ask for feedback, but mostly we're just there to hear them out. And, you know, a lot of people don't give these individuals the time of day. When I was in my addiction, no one believed anything I ever said, or, you know, ever listened to me. And, you know, it took one person to listening to what I had to say, and just, you know, taking an interest in my life and my well-being. And that really helps me get the help that I needed. And I think another thing, I forgot what I was going to say. I think another, like, mostly the peer respite that I supervise, it really aligns with, you know, other roles at Share. You know, we all work really hard to sustain the peer relationship in all instances and avoid peer drift. But a peer's job is ultimately to be a supportive friend to others who are, you know, struggling, and utilize their own stories and disclose their own experiences to help others, and, you know, feel understood and not alone. And, you know, we practice all of this in all of our departments. But I will say the environment is different. You know, it's residents living in a family home together. And like you said, you know, they cook together, they grocery shop together, you know, they sleep under the same roof together. And, you know, they're with each other for an extended period of time. And with that time, they're able to have conflict and then figure out how to resolve conflict, which is really helpful. And, you know, having roommates, they hold each other accountable. And, you know, just the fact that they're all living together, it makes it a whole different program in itself, because they experience camaraderie and family and unity whenever they're living under the same roof, and kind of all have the same goals in mind, but are all likely struggling to achieve those goals. I think that's all I had to say. Adrian, do you want to go?
Yeah. No, I don't know necessarily what it's like to supervise outside of the peer respite. It's been my primary work for quite a while. So, but what I can say is that I think of it, I don't call it supervision as much as a guest a long time ago said, broke up the word supervision into super hyphen vision and visions, add a S on the end of it. So I really come from a framework when talking with people that I am supervisor with, or as peers. I call people my teammates, not my employees. I work with, like I make a deliberate effort to let people know that supervision is a time for supervisions, to share our experience, to be able to, and exactly as I see it in the chat, and I do quote that, and it is capital S, capital V, because it's a time for a meeting of the minds. It's not just because I'm the manager doesn't mean that I have sort of like the best vision of how it should be. It really is about a collaboration process of honoring all perspectives, even views that can be somewhat authoritarian. How do we integrate all these pressing forces to come up with a way that we're in this together, that we recognize a shared goal, a shared identity, a shared creation, and it's a beautiful opportunity to get to know each other, and what brings these two souls together at a given time to be able to communicate their inner worlds and how it impacts a community and how it grows a community. So supervisions is really is a beautiful time to just to understand who we are, how we are. And I don't want to go on much longer than that, but I think that's just wanted to just touch on that just slightly, ever so lightly.
Thanks, Adrian. Definitely am going to use supervisions too. That's really awesome. I totally see exactly what you're saying. I do my best to I'm studying psychology right now. So sometimes I get stuck on like client language or intake language, and we practice a lot to refrain from that type of language. So because that kind of causes peer drift, and it makes people feel like they're othered, essentially. So yeah, anyway, we try to approach everything like we're a friend who's there to help them, and that's why we're present ultimately. So thanks for sharing that. Vera, you have your hand up. You want to say something?
Yes, thank you so much for your comments. I would like to know what the ratio is of staff to resident and guest, if there is a best practice in terms of ratios.
I can say that at our respite center, because of the pandemic, our staff is down right now. Ordinarily, our rule is to have 2 people on for every shift, and we have 4 shifts every day. So that doesn't always happen. We have 1 person for some shifts, especially the evening shifts when people are settled down more. But our clients we just have a 4-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms. It's a lovely place. It's really, I'd love to live there. It's so nice. And it's in the forest on a hillside, and pretty close to town, right off the freeway. And so it's easily accessible, but there's no mass transit to it. So that is a drawback in a rural community. A lot of people don't have cars, or they have cars that aren't functioning well or whatever. So that's across the board for most of our people in these situations. Transportation is difficult. But I think, even 1 to 4 is good. I'm also a retired teacher, and we were, 1 teacher to 30 kids when I was teaching. So that wasn't any good. And they started saying, okay, you got to have 1 teacher for 15 kids, or what, but, I think that ratio is pretty good that we have, because I find that if anybody needs me, I have time for them. And our supervisor has really enforced that we spend time with the client if needed before any other chores or responsibilities that we have, and we have a lot. We help to keep the place clean, and we help cook the meals at dinner time, and we, you know, some of us get the groceries or whatever, and then we have our paperwork. We have shift notes to do, and we have now Medi-Cal notes to do. So it's pretty intense. We're very active every shift and every hour, but it works. It works great, and our clients love it. Yeah.
Thank you, Shera. Eugene, you have your hand up. Do you want to go?
There, actually, so the two questions. The one on the ratio, I know at Soteria and Emanon, we had 6 residents pretty much all the time. Two assigned staff. Usually it was 24 to 48 hour shifts. Sometimes you would have someone that just worked during the day. But so it was almost, generally it was almost a 3 people to the 6, so probably a 2-to-1 ratio overall. It seemed to work. In times of a major crisis, you try to get more volunteers in, see what you can do, or people would just simply work extra shifts on that level. Then going back to the other original question on the supervision, again, I think what is also really important is that the supervisor understands who they are, that what are the pressures on them that they're not acknowledging. So if, especially like in peer support, you're trying to keep the house going, you're getting low on funds for groceries, that's all pressure on you that then you really need to be aware of, that it doesn't leak out onto your needs from other people. So I just think it's really crucial for self-awareness. And that I think is probably just an ongoing understanding that always has to be taking place, that you as much as possible are aware of what's going on in your life, what's going on where with you emotionally, what are you putting on the shelf for the time being, what are you not putting on the shelf, how are you finding, where are you getting your support while you're giving other people support. And that's got to be just an operating context that you're always in, along with what is the context of the people you're working with. So there's always multiple contexts, and the higher your awareness is, I think the better supervisor that you become, because the less actual supervising you're doing and the more understanding you're doing. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Eugene. Todd, do you want to go ahead and answer?
Yeah. So when we got our technical assistance, we were asking about that for staffing as well, and it was told to us that usually it's about a 1-to-5 ratio. We've trained our staff and are continuing to train our staff in different things, because we do, whether the house manager is the house manager, each and every single one of them employees are managers in themselves. Right? First, they got to manage themselves, and then they got to manage the house being clean. Did people pick up after themselves and put things back? You know, and if not, how do I approach that? How do I come to them and just say, you know, the norm, you need to clean up your mess? No, it's, hey, did you need assistance with that? Do you need to learn something like that? That they are the managers, right? And I heard Jessica say it earlier, conflict, and that's one of the things too, is conflict resolution, right? I remember one time when we first opened it, I got a call to go over. We had three young ladies there, and one has a organizational skill that likes to have, and everything has to have a place. Well, this other person staying there didn't have that organizational skill. So, you know, getting that support to my staff in showing them how to use that, and, you know, sitting down with the guest and saying, you know, what if I was to take this here and throw it out? What would you do? Well, I'd pick it up. Well, exactly. So that doesn't mean that I'm going to pick it up. right? So we all have to figure out how to deal with it. Either I need to pick it up or I need to leave it be, and they'll get it, right? That's the nice thing about recovery, choices and options, right? And I really do. I think it's, they are big in managing that house. They know that not only are they managing themselves, they know they're managing that, the house is safe, the house is secure, that, the heat is on the temperature it needs to be comfortable with everybody. And if somebody's too hot and gets a little bit abrupt about that, how do they handle that? All these things that they need to know in training. Now, we also run an after-hours wellness recovery center, and I don't take away the manager and the position that they have, but you're talking 8 hours that you're with that guest, right? And we've had a lot of guests that come in and have a lot to say, right? You're taking a lot in. So how do I deal with that and stay focused, right? Because if I'm sitting there for almost 6 hours and I'm talking to you about all the problems that I'm going through and looking to you for support, there's that time you might nod off. How do I keep myself from nodding off? Do I adjust where I'm sitting? Do I ask them if they can adjust where they're sitting? All these little techniques that go hand in hand. So, really when we are hiring somebody, we're looking for, is this a leader? Is this somebody that has led themselves? And if not, ask them, what have you, what things have you done? Was it Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts? What have you done out there in a leadership role? Because they truly are going to come in there as a leader, as a manager during that shift.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. I love what all of you have shared because it just aligns so much with what we do at our peer run respite. And it just makes me feel understood. For sure. You guys, it's in, I think Shera said something about it earlier about essentially, the residents, they run the house. It's their home and they treat it as they would their home. And sometimes that, like you were talking about, Todd, sometimes that builds conflict and we use those opportunities to try to, help them resolve it and, learn necessary skills for everyday life. And Vera, about the ratio, I wanted to add to that. I love that you asked that question because that's something that we've talked about several times about making sure that staff never outnumber residents because we want them to, we want residents to feel like this is their home, and because it is, but if they feel like there's, they know that there's a paid peer support specialist there, then, it's likely that people will, not feel uncomfortable there. And that's one of our main goals too, is to make sure that people feel comfortable where they are and they feel like this is their home that they want to take care of and be a part of. So usually we do 8 residents per session, and our recovery retreat has 2 people per shift, except for the overnight shift, which it's usually just 1 person. At this current house, we are getting pretty close to having interns here who want to learn how to work in a peer run respite. So we only have about 5 people who are on staff total. And so 1 person per shift, and then we will add 1 or 2 interns. But the interns will essentially, they'll kind of do a duo thing where they do things with residents and act as residents. So they get the experience that residents get from a peer run respite. And then they also do, the reports or the shift notes and things like that on the side, which is really cool. And we've never done that before. And so I'm looking forward to getting people in here who want the experience of running a peer respite. So thank you for that question too. That's awesome. Let's see, I think we've got one more question. I think we've got time just for one more. And this is like my favorite question because I could benefit a lot from it. The question is, what advice would you give to organizations considering starting a peer respite? And you can also talk about like challenges that you've maybe overcome in that, or in working in your respite, or you know, the greatest advantages of your program as well. Go ahead, Shera. If I don't know if you're raising your hand.
Todd's hands up also.
Okay. Well, I think it's really important to stress team. And by that, I mean real team, where people really love and care for one another. And if the staff doesn't have that, then your clients aren't going to feel it. So I think a supervisor is really responsible to keep that connection going. And you mentioned, Jessica, staff meetings. We have a staff meeting once a month, but we also have a group called peer reflections, which is without the managers, just the staff. So we can air out whatever we need to and also inform each other. And it's a time, I think, when we also can be caring of one another when someone doesn't feel well, when they're going through some syndrome that's part of their own condition, whatever comes up, burnout, you know, during the pandemic with people getting sick and all, people had to cover for others. And particularly, I mean, I have great admiration for our supervisors because they end up picking up the slack. And it's really important that we care about one another and for each other. Thanks.
Did you want to go? Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
Who are we on here?
Who? I'm sorry, I don't know who's next.
Oh, how about if I just go, since I'm unmuted?
Okay.
I'm unmuted
Great.
at this point. So in terms of what advice I would give is a couple of things is one, find really dedicated people, because it is not a regular job. And you are going to go past the limit every time. It's just part of the system of what is required. So you need really dedicated people. And the other thing is inspire people by what you're doing. What you're doing is tremendous. It is of huge value. And that itself is what can motivate people. So I don't think that should be downplayed. I think people understanding that they're doing something very special for others is what can make you dedicated, is what can make you understand, and you put in that extra. And you don't go to the point of martyrdom. Everybody goes to martyrdom once, okay, just so you know what it feels like. And then you say, holy crap, I'm never doing this again. And then you move back a little bit. But you can stay inspired and you can stay dedicated. And again, the part of the supervisor is to keep that inspiration going, to point out to people, do you realize what you're doing? Do you see the effect of what you're doing? Do you realize how wonderful you are as a person and what you're doing for others? And that people need to hear that the same way that the peer needs to hear it. You know, you are wonderful. Whatever your issues are, they're what they are, but you yourself are still wonderful inside those issues. And that's what gives the people the inspiration, the breath to keep moving, that they are worthwhile. And when I think when over these years, as I've looked at this, what the main curative aspect of all of this is giving people a sense of worthiness. They are worthwhile. And that, I think, is what will always carry people forward, because they often come in feeling they have no worth. Not only are they not valid as human beings, they actually have no worth. And so what the respite gives them, if you do it right, is a sense of worth. And that's what I think it's all about. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Jean. That was awesome. Thank you. Adrian, you want to go?
Yeah, I don't know how much more I can add other than I just really appreciate that comment, Eugene. It's really beautiful, and I think the only thing that the only thing that I the couple of things I could offer, I think, are just making sure when hiring people that they're really clear about the healing journey that they're on, and really acknowledging what they've been through, and really open and coming from a heart place. My friend, who Eugene might know, Yana Jacobs, worked at the first Soteria. She kind of mentored me along this whole journey, and or at least for the first part of it. And so she always said that they hired people who fit a criteria from coming from a loving perspective at Soteria. And like that's from hearing that enough to finally say even at the very beginning, we only hire people who come from that heart space, from that loving space, if we can. I mean, we don't want to discriminate against people who come from a more mental space also, but like just as long as those two almost conditions really are open and about their healing journey, and then coming from a place of love to work with others on theirs. And I think that I'll just stop there, and it's just really been a pleasure to be a part of this panel, and I'll hand it over to Todd now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Adrian. Go ahead, Todd, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you, Adrian and Eugene. And that's exactly a lot of things that I would say as well. And I think one thing that we have to remember as supervisors is our connection, not only with our staff, but to our community. And I think anybody that would face any challenges out there opening a peer respite, one of the things I know I would do as the supervisor and as I did as the director is to really, really go out there and get to know your chief of police, get to know your sheriff, get to know your mayor, get to know your city council, and then get to know your community. Because I'm telling you right now, the community is going to be the least of your problems. It's going to be more of the issues with some of the bias and some of the stigma with your law enforcement officers, your hospitals, your ERs, the ones that went to school to learn all these things that we know because of our lived experience. And that's the only thing that, other than what Eugene and Adrian added, that I would really do as the supervisor and the director, is make that face known in the community, because they're going to be your biggest support.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, I want to touch on that a little bit. At our recovery retreat, we have a training for staff, and we kind of implement it in conversations with residents, and it's called How to Be a Good Neighbor. And that's, it's basically what the name says. And it's, what can we do to make sure that we are good to the people in the homes surrounding us. And part of that training also includes building a good relationship and good rapport with our local police. And especially residents will sometimes call the cops on one another, and cops will get sick of like calls where nothing is really going on, or things like that. And so we had a really good relationship with the Monterey Park Police Department, and they were always so kind and really, really good with really understanding toward people struggling with mental health and substance use. And that was really helpful for our program, because no one wants a cop around. I was always scared of them in my addiction, to the point where I'm not doing anything wrong today, but cops still make me nervous. And I don't know, I think it's just ingrained in me now. So yeah, thank you for saying that, because I completely forgot about that part of it. That's super important. And peer respites get they face a lot of stigma along with the people who are in peer respites already. And so I think it's really important to to get people familiar with what it is that we do and what our purpose is to help people within this community and population. So yeah, thanks. I think that's all the questions that that we had, and we're pretty much out of time, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to directly ask anyone in this panel if you guys decide to stick around. I'm so thankful for all of you here on this panel, because I learned so much, and I'm a little newbie at this, and I feel like I learned a lot, and that what I'm doing, I'm also on the right track, which is awesome. So thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jessica.
Thank you for having us.
too.
Thank you, Jessica, and everyone on the panel. A lot of great insight and heart. That was really nice to hear. Thank you so much.